Hello and welcome to the No One Can Hear You Dream podcast. This week we will be reviewing 1917. So Kayla, if you would give us a brief synopsis.
Sure, the story follows two young soldiers who are fighting for the British Army in the middle of World War One. They get called to deliver a message to another troop, wherein if they do not, about 1,600 soldiers will be brutally slaughtered. It seems like a nearly impossible mission because they have to travel essentially behind enemy lines into enemy territory of southern France, where German soldiers have completely occupied. So they have to get there within a certain amount of time, otherwise over 1,000 people will die.
Okay, and what were your thoughts on the film?
Okay, so I guess I should preface this with the fact that overall I really don't enjoy watching war films. I just never have, and I probably never will. So I would say, as far as a war film goes, it was good. For me in particular, I didn't hate it, but I definitely wouldn't put it anywhere near my top 5.
Are we classing this as 2020 or 2019 though? Or do you just mean in general?
In general.
Top 5 films
Yeah,
that you
I
ever
will
seen?
never need to watch it again. But I don't want that to speak on the value of the film and whether or not it was good, because I feel like I'm a really bad judge of that. I will say, however, for a war film, it was fine.
Okay, what
I
did
thought
you
it was
enjoy about it?
beautiful. I thought it was beautiful. The cinematography, all the shots where they did some really cool I don't know any of the technical terms, but like rotations with the camera, where it would start,
Like sweeping shots?
yeah, sweeping shots where it would start kind of close up on the main character, and as it would, the camera would turn, you'd kind of get this wide shot of the background and the vast landscape. And the whole time I just kept thinking, wow, France is so beautiful. Even like in this really horrible time where a lot of it's run down and decrepit, and then in the scenes where it's really disgusting and just dug through, because you really get to see all of the trenches and all of the dead bodies and all of the craters that from the bombs and the trenches that they built. And all I could think was, wow, how has this land recovered from this now in modern times? Because it just seems so irreversible. That's how insane the the landscape looks in a lot of those areas. Or the scene where he's running through the ruins of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, wow, all of that beautiful historical architecture is gone. And so I think that was really powerful as far as the impact of war. You really get to see it, because you do have these very peaceful moments where he's kind of just running through fields, or when they come across that ruined barn, right? And there's one cow alive and the rest of them have been shot dead. And there's just one cow grazing still. Um, I think it really shows you just how horrible war is in general, and how it could take something so beautiful. Like, you'll see
Yeah.
one beautiful shot and then it'll cut. It'll look really stunning, and then it'll cut and there'll be a bunch of dead bodies floating in the water or something like that. And you're like, wow, this is what war does, huh?
Yeah, to touch on that, I think you spoke about the opening sequence where they're in the trenches. It just says a lot about even them creating the set. The
Mm-hmm.
trenches seemed endless, didn't they, at the beginning of the film?
Yeah.
Because it's shot in one single take. It feels like it for the first like 10, 15 minutes, doesn't it? It follows these two lads as they're running backwards and forwards through these trenches, getting as soon as they get the message from their commander to take take on board this mission.
Yeah, then it just follows the one kid all the way
Yeah, it
through
follows them all the way through.
the trenches to the front line. So he's
Hundreds
got
and hundreds of men.
Yeah.
It seems like a labyrinth of trenches almost.
It's a city. It's a city that
awesome.
they've built. And
then it even follows them on to No Man's Land. And that's when, for me, I love horror films. That's my favorite genre, horror and thriller. And it felt like a horror film to me, more than anything. When they go on to No Man's Land and there's these decomposed horses, like half its skull is showing. It looks so frightening. And then when they make it through No Man's Land, because the Germans have retreated, and they go into the bunker, and there are these like sacks with something nondescript in it, but rats are attracted to it. And that just reminds me of like horror games I would have played on the PlayStation when I was a kid, like Resident Evil or something. I just like these gooey sacks that you don't know what's in it, and there's these rats, but it's abandoned. It's abandoned just because they've retreated, but it feels like something else has happened there.
It does very much feel like, for the entirety of the film, even, it feels like a point of view video game, like you were saying. When you said that, I really, looking back on it, that's what I feel like the vibe of the whole film was, that you're one of these soldiers and you're running through the trek trying to get to, the checkpoint, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
It does feel like that it does feel like that's how it was shot, to make you feel like you're this character running through these landscapes to try to get somewhere to complete this mission. Because that's, like any war game that you would play, except it felt a lot more real. It's as if that video game came to life, So, yeah. And I agree with you, when they get to the front line and they're going through all of the craters and everything with all of the dead bodies, it really felt like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, it did,
very post-apocalyptic. And that was the moment that I was like, wow, I don't even understand how they were able to repair all of this land and then 20 years later have another war. That was really impactful to me. I will say that there's not, and I think this is probably why I enjoyed it more than other war films, is because there's not a lot of combat in the film. It's not a combat film. It's not like
very little.
Yeah, it's not going to be guns blazing, bombs going off all the time. There is, some elephants. There are some elements of that. But it's primarily, as I was saying before, like a solo shot of you feeling like you're just on your own running through a dangerous area. So
yeah, it was very non-glamorous in terms of if you think of something like Saving Private Ryan, there's these huge action sequences, whereas with this, the biggest action sequence, when the planes are fighting each other, even that's viewed from afar from the two protagonists. What is protagonist or antagonist?
Protagonist.
Protagonist. It's viewed by them from afar, and then obviously I don't want to give too much away, but that meets them shortly.
Yeah.
And some stuff
Well,
happens.
that's in the trailer. The plane crashes into the barn that they're standing near. That's in the trailer, so I think we can
is it?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they show it coming down and they're like running away. But
the only thing that annoyed me. Okay, because this is a part of the same act, I suppose. They get to the small town in France that has been bombed, and without giving too much away, somebody comes to, and it's nighttime. And I think one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen in any film ever is when he's looking through the window and the buildings are lit up from the fires, and it's like it's almost like it looks so fantastical, doesn't it? The shadows are just dancing and playing against each other, and this looks so good.
When he walks out and he starts walking towards and he's kind of towards the burning
the
city,
town.
and he comes through the archway. In my head, what I was thinking was, oh my God, it's like he's walking into Mordor. Like, that's how it felt.
So fucking cool. It was
but
really
it wasn't
cool.
fantasy. It was this very gritty war film about real events, but it did feel fantasy-like in that moment.
Yeah, and that just speaks so highly of the cinematography. It was one of the best looking films.
I feel like I feel like a lot of the movie felt that way, with these big panoramic shots of the background. You felt like you're getting those scenes from The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings when they're just in this trekking across the mountaintops kind of idea. So it did bring in the kind of fantasy element. I would say some cons for the movie for me are that
I'll give you one, because this is where I was leading up to.
Yeah.
He goes throughout town. He meets a young French woman. Then he proceeds to leave the town to get to where he needs to go because he's been directed. And he comes across some soldiers. And apparently they're fucking stormtroopers or something, because they can't hit him with a bullet. That was the only problem I had with the entire film. They just couldn't hit him. It was only one guy really shooting at him, because one of them was drunk. One of them was sober and was chasing after him. I'm sure it's hard to shoot somebody whilst you're running, but come on. It just felt, it took away from the realism and the grittiness of it for me. That was the only problem I had with the entire film. It was the
middle of the night, and
it was breaking into morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was dark and it was hard to see, and he was kind of running through, not through walls, but like running
derelict buildings
and stuff. So, but all of a sudden he becomes like a super ninja dodging bullets. So I get what you're saying. That was
the only problem I had with the entire film.
So I think it's important to remember that this is a retelling of a story from somebody's, great-great-grandfather, whomever was involved in the war, that I believe it was somebody related to the director or the producer.
Mendes, it said at the end. It said stories told by Mendes, so I don't know if this is a true account. He may have been told it through somebody else he met.
We don't know if it's a direct account. Would have to look into that more, but it seems, it's coming from somebody's memory, so it's how they perceive it.
It's going to be slightly glamorized.
It's going to be glamorized, or not even glamorized, but maybe a little bit
exaggerated. Sorry, that's the word I meant.
Because it could have been just one guy shooting at him, but it felt like multiple people, or it
was in the film, but there was one guy who was drunk who was chasing after him.
Yeah,
and then the other soldier follows him and starts shooting and just can't hit him. But whatever.
Yeah,
it's not the biggest con, I suppose, but. It just took away from the realism of everything else we'd seen up to that point.
I think for me, there were just some moments where I felt like didn't fully come to a head, or we didn't get closure on. So that was a little disappointing. But I understand why they did it.
Is this something you can't talk about without giving it away?
Well, his whole interaction with the French woman just felt like that was a whole entire story in itself, that you never know what happens to her. Or I also don't.
You don't think there would have been those interactions, though? Those fleeting interactions, because you're trying to.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I understand why they did it that way, but just felt like, from a storytelling point of view, I just wanted more closure. But I understand that it's kind of irrelevant to the rest of the story, and it's really just a nod to his own personal life and the people back home, isn't it? But I do also think, like, the way one of the characters dies bothered me.
Yeah, we talked about this. I didn't have a problem with it. I understand why you did, but there would still be those moments of humanity where you just wanted to help, and without giving too much away, that's what he did.
Yeah.
You thought it was stupid for doing so. Which in the end he was, because he gets killed. But still, I think there would have been those moments. I don't think that's
yeah, but you should always have your guard
far-fetched.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
All right. All
So,
right. Well, I don't want to go.
but I think it
Yeah.
just shows to his like naivete, because before that, when the other guy is talking to him, the other soldier is talking to him about how he doesn't really know what it's like out there, because they kind of preface it like he's kind of new on the block. He hasn't really been in the thick of it yet. So the other friend has.
Yeah. And
And
they're both, that's something that should have been said. They're both very young.
yeah, they're
So
very
it's seen
young.
through these, sort of a child's eye almost, because they look about 16, don't they? Or something like that.
Well, one of them looks about 16. I'd say the other one looks about
Slightly
20.
older.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then I just feel like the ending happened so quickly. You get what I mean by that? Like his.
Without giving away the ending, it's very difficult to talk about. Okay, why don't
For
we?
example,
This is what we'll do. We can talk about the ending, but we'll give our verdicts now.
we'll give our
And then if
verdicts
anybody
now,
wants
and then
to-
we're going to get to spoilers. Okay. I would say definitely a movie you have to see in the theater, for sure. And I would say it is worth seeing in theaters, even if you're not like, just for a cinematic point, from a cinematic point of view of getting to see. It was just gorgeous. I feel like even the disgusting scenes were beautiful to watch. So I would say for that, it's definitely worth seeing in the theaters and paying to go see it.
Nothing else to add. It's incredible to look at. I enjoyed the film probably a little bit more than you did.
Yeah.
But as you've pointed out, I don't think if you are somebody like Kayla who doesn't like war films, this isn't a war film,
Yeah.
really. Isn't, as you might imagine, like something like Saving Private Ryan, where these huge action sequences.
Yeah.
It's more, I don't know, it's like it is kind of like Lord of the Rings in a sense, because it's a journey from one place to another.
And
So,
yes. Yeah, I have nothing to add. Yeah.
The only thing I'll add other than that is that I thought the script was very funny. It was very English, what do they call it? Gallows humor.
Mm-hmm.
Just very dry, like banterish kind of jokes between
Mm-hmm.
army friends, and just how English people would deal with
Mm-hmm.
such atrocities, really. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I don't know how you feel about the script and the dialogue.
Yeah, I have no problems with the dialogue. As a whole, I thought it was great. I thought they built relationships very well and very quickly, which was good. You could see, and I think maybe it's a bit easier to do that when you already have this set structure of you already have this set structure of military life, because there already is this hierarchy. So, and you're already playing, when you interact with people, you're either on the same team or against them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already an established relationship, regardless of whether or not you know the person, and a set of rules with interacting with those people. And there's that sense of camaraderie, especially between the younger soldiers who are all kind of the same rank, because they're all in the thick of it,
yeah.
right? So I think that it's kind of easy to establish that relationship, but at the same time, I don't want to fault the writers, because I do think that it's always a difficult thing to do that well, and I think they did a really good job of that. Job. So,
okay, so definitely go and watch it. Run to the cinema to watch 1917.
Yeah, definitely do it.
And now, briefly, then touching on the ending.
Spoilers.
Why didn't you like it? I think I know why, but.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this to you before. They play up like Benedict Cumberbatch is gonna like he's
Oh, that's the reason.
well,
Okay.
not that's part of the reason. Like Benedict Cumberbatch and what's his face,
Colin Firth
are
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong, like
Huge actors, the biggest actors,
and
the
they're
biggest
like
names.
featured all over the previews. They're literally each in the movies for like 25 seconds a piece, and that's it. Which is fine.
Maybe total for all of them.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I didn't go see that movie because they were in it or anything, but it just felt like these moments where it's like, bum, 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 star, bum, 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 gone. You know what I mean? It just kind of like added this sense of cheese to it when Benedict Cumberbatch turns around, when he's like, when he finally gets in to get the message to him, and it's like, it's Benedict Cumberbatch. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It didn't. I understand what you're saying, because it didn't need to be him.
It didn't need to be him at all. It could have been anyone. It could have been an opportunity for somebody. Like, it did that.
But it wouldn't have been much of an opportunity for anybody, would it?
No. And
the film was carried by these two young boys who did a great job, which we should have mentioned before. They were fucking
They were excellent.
Awesome.
They were
so good.
And I guess you kind of have to have the Benedict Cumberbatches and the Colin Firths in there to promote your film.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like they were in there they were in those minor roles just so people would go see this film. That's what I kind of feel like.
Possibly.
But I do feel like...
But it didn't distract for me.
No, it didn't distract for me, although I did have a little chuckle when Benedict turned around. Because it really was kind of a little bit dramatic.
He looked cool, though.
He looked great.
Nice little scar on his face.
He looked
battle-hardened.
He looks like he's from that time.
He does,
like,
he little mustache.
He just looks like he
belongs in
travel time
the 20s or whatever.
But I don't know. You didn't laugh when he turned around. It just felt very dramatic.
I like him a lot.
I get that scene is dramatic, but it's just, I guess it's just...
Well, that's the thing. It has to be dramatic because that is the end of the film. That's what they've been building towards the entire film. So it has to be... Well, it's going to be by the way, don't attack those Nazis over there. It's like, oh, what? Oh, right, I won't.
No, but him turning around, specifically the part when he turns around.
Yeah, but what if he just ran in and Benedict's there and he's like, you're right? He has to like be like, no, to give it some, yeah.
No, I know.
You know?
It's just funny because it's only like, that's it. That's all he does. Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were going to talk about the fact that he jumps into the river. He makes it to the forest where this lady said there'll be, or where the town is, or whatever it is. And then he happens across
the group that he's looking for.
The group that he's looking for without knowing it.
Yeah, but
I thought you were gonna that's too much of a...
I do feel like...
stretch.
No, I didn't think it was too much of a stretch because he talks about from the beginning he's got to get to this town and then cross a river to get to where he's going. So
why wouldn't they be there? Yeah.
So why wouldn't they be there? So I didn't feel that way. And I don't want to say like, I don't like, it was not anticlimactic at all. I mean, it was very much extremely dramatic and stressful when he's doing that last trek through the trenches one more time to get to the captain. That was so stressful, and it's like so sad because
you see all of these, a sea
of people, the first wave
going over to their death ultimately.
Yeah, so that was very, very... I think the payoff was
there.
Good, was there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like maybe that's what it is. Maybe I feel like it was very dramatic to get there, but then you don't really see the payoff because it immediately goes to the aftermath of all of the people in the Medica area. I don't know I don't know what it is. It just felt like they called it off. But maybe I wanted like that halting moment or something. I just feel like I'm missing something and I can't really put my finger on it. Does that make sense?
Kind of, because you didn't... Well, as he's running across the top of the trench, so he is avoiding all the people that would slow him down,
Mm-hmm.
you do see like bombs exploding and people
Mm-hmm.
getting hit and going down from enemy fire. So I don't know what you mean. You wanted to
Like,
see, you want to see more people die.
No, I wanted to see the payoff, the relief, the payoff of the
Everybody being called
of
back.
the relief, of it being like the whistle's blowing, everybody stops,
Yeah, okay.
like that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think we needed it, but maybe I needed it.
Yeah, sure. You can have that.
Because he's just like,
criticism.
go tell him to stop, and then it's like, done.
Yeah, that wasn't a problem for me. I
Yeah.
honestly didn't, apart from the one scene where they couldn't hit the poor chap, honestly didn't have any problems with the film. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how much I like it, because I'm not a huge war film buff either.
Yeah,
But
you said it was top 5 for you.
possibly of last year, if we're counting last year. Possibly.
Yeah.
But then I've said
anything before the Oscars.
I've said that about 15 films.
Yeah.
I'm pretty, so maybe I'm pretty easy to please. But I don't know. Anyway, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
So run and watch 1917 whilst it's in theaters.
Done.
Ta-ra.